Underground Bunker. This is your proprietor. It's Wednesday afternoon. Absolutely incredible day in court today here at the Nassau County Supreme Court in Garden City, New York. It was day 2 of the trial between Suzanne Goldsmith, her husband David Smith, versus Yanti Michael Green, the last of the private investigators that they sued 5 years ago. And, you know, you've heard the background from me. Actually, David and Suzanne were split up for a while. David hired a PI firm to follow his wife. And after that, they reconciled. Together, they sued this PI firm because David was unhappy with how they had basically run up charges against him. But Suzanne's allegations were so much worse that these and today she testified. Today we got to hear her explain what it was like when she had literally dozens of private investigators day after day after day, 7 days a week, around the clock, following her everywhere she went. And it got to the point where they actually approached her at some point and said, look, if you just tell us where you're going, it'll be easier on you, it'll be easier on us. And she relented. And that's how she got to know some of these guys. And she said the guy that was supervising it all was this guy, Yanti Michael Green. He was the most aggressive of the drivers. He was the most kind of in her face all the time. And it got to the point where they got, you know, they were seeing each other, and she would go into a bar, he'd go in there too. And she described 2 incidents that were sexual assault. And I heard some new details today I hadn't ever heard before, and it was, you know, it was brutal. And I'll tell you the moment for me that was really incredible. See, you know, I remember the Danny Masterson trial just last year. These women had to testify 3 separate times at a preliminary hearing and 2 trials, and had to go through cross-examination. It was just brutal. But these women told compelling stories, and ultimately that put Danny Masterson in prison. Well, here, Suzanne Goldsmith was telling a very brutal story about how she'd been treated by this guy, but it's not just based on her word. In the second incident, in the back of his car, she found out later, that night she blacked out, she didn't remember anything, but then she found out later he had recorded something. So when they sued him, they wanted that tape. What he then did was submit a couple of minutes of video to the court, claiming that it proved that she raped him. I mean, it was ludicrous on its face, but the fact that he tried to do this. Well, the court ordered him to turn over his phone because they suspected there was more footage, and then suddenly his phone went missing. But then they found a way to get the original footage off of the cloud from Apple. And if you remember, I was here, I don't know, a year ago, hearing an expert testify about that. And he said, yeah, I was able to get all 11 or 12 minutes, whatever it was. And he mentioned that, you know, he heard Green saying things like, get ready, here it comes. Well, that's not what somebody being raped says. That's what the rapist says, right? So that's as much detail as I knew until today. Today, Suzanne Goldsmith testified about what she saw on the whole tape. And she said it graphically shows his genitals penetrating hers. An unconscious woman. And I was stunned. I'm like, that's it. That's the definition of rape. He's overpowering a woman that's, you know, I mean, this is on video? They have this on video and this guy's walking around? He hasn't been arrested? I was just absolutely stunned. Well, we know that the next thing that was coming was her cross-examination. And in this case, Green is defending himself pro se, without an attorney. So you know, this was going to be after the lunch break, basically, and I was not looking forward to this. This was going to be ugly, was Green questioning the woman he had raped. Well, at that point, the judge stepped in, Judge Leonard Steinman. And he said to the two sides, look, it's unusual because it's pro se, but if I can get permission from the both sides, I could talk to you individually. And they're like, okay. And it was obvious that what Steinman wanted to do was see if he could get them to settle the case right then. I mean, there was two more, there were a couple of expert witnesses. There was another, Green had a witness. This thing was going to go to Friday, right? But now all of a sudden the judge wanted to meet individually with Green and then meet with Suzanne's attorneys. He thought he could work something out. I can tell you they were skeptical. But then I started thinking about this. Why is Yanti Michael Green, retired New York Police Department detective, former Scientology private investigator, why is he the last man standing? They sued like 6 people. They sued other private investigators. They sued the firm, the owners of the firm. All of those people had settled. All of those people were gone. Only Yanti Michael Green was left. Why? And then I figured it out. He wanted a fucking payday. See, it would be natural to think it's the other way around, that David and Suzanne Goldsmith are going to try to, win a judgment from him, or maybe settlement where he'll have to pay a certain amount. No. He expected to be paid. Tony, how? He had the videotape. That's what he's been holding over them. They wanted that tape so that he wouldn't use it in some other way, and he expected a payday. Once I figured that out, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. This man videotaped himself raping an unconscious woman and expected to be paid for it. That's how fucked up the justice system is in fucking Nassau County, New York. This is a videotape portraying a former New York Police Department detective raping an unconscious woman, and the district attorney of Nassau County doesn't even want to see it. Police departments here, sheriff's department, they have no interest. The judge today heard testimony about what's in that video. Do you think he has to see it? No. But Yanti Michael Green expected a big payday. Now, on the other side, what they had over him is, if you remember, he was caught trying to deceive this court by only turning in a minute of it to make it, different than what it was. He was caught red-handed. And they found him in contempt of court, and it gave the David and Suzanne a judgment of $300,000, which is up to about $400,000 now with interest. So they've got that over him. I think what happened today, the terms of the settlement are confidential. I think what happened was he agreed to turn over the tape in return for them erasing that $400,000 debt. Now, whether he got anything on top of that, I don't know. I can tell you, though, I know he expected it. He wanted it. That's what he was holding out for. But at the least, I think he got out from underneath that $400,000 court judgment. I'm just so disgusted. I'm so disgusted at what an excuse for the justice system there is here. Because Suzanne has said this in the past. Anytime they tried to get law enforcement interested in what had happened to her, as soon as people heard this was a cop they're talking about, a retired New York Police Department detective, they weren't interested. And this guy not only got away with a very serious felony, he expected to make money from it. I know he's no longer Nassau's problem. Now he's New Orleans' problem. And he's no longer Yanti Michael Green. He's Michael Moretti Ford Cruz. So, people of Louisiana, that's who you got. I don't know. This was just incredible. I'm the only reporter in the courtroom. There was one other reporter here yesterday. He wasn't here today. You're not going to see any stories about this on the nightly news. You're not going to see any stories about this in the newspaper. But I watched a man get away with rape today. And he was only here because he thought he was going to make money from it. Well, I'm glad for David and Suzanne. This long legal journey is finally over. And I think they're relieved. And I hope they do get that tape from him and can destroy it or whatever. And because I know Suzanne's very sensitive about that and does not want the world to see her in that condition. I don't blame her. But I think the people that should be watching that videotape, like the district attorney of this county, should be ashamed of themselves. All right. What a week. We got a lot more coming up. I got something good coming soon. Got to get home and get to work on it. So, this is your proprietor in Garden City, New York, signing out.